Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're really going on a journey
A deep one, for sure.
right into the heart of self-evolution, inner freedom, and we're using the really profound teachings of Ron W Rathbun as our map.
And they are so specific. This isn't, just some general self-help advice. It's more like a practical manual for making these huge internal shifts.
It is. It feels like it operates on this core principle that the freedom you're looking for, well, it's achieved by getting rid of resistance.
Which requires, an intense amount of self-honesty.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to really distill the core principles from this material, to figure out how to get that personal freedom. We're going to focus on the power of being real and the mechanics of detachment.
And the hook is fantastic.
It really is. The foundational idea that started it all. The more he was himself, the more real he became, the more he could just let other people be themselves.
It's such an elegant feedback loop, isn't it?
Yeah, that one thought just collapses the whole need to judge or control everything.
Because true self-acceptance, it doesn't isolate you. It actually creates the space for universal acceptance. You can only really handle the chaos of other people when you're totally secure in your own foundation.
Okay, let's unpack that foundation then. Section 1. What does it even mean to be real?
The material is so direct about it.
It just says, real is always real, and the way to understand life. It almost sounds circular at first.
But it implies this radical, unvarnished truth about your own state. It's about stripping away all the pretense.
The artifice.
Exactly. And by setting that up, the text immediately points to its opposite, denial. The opposite of real is denial, which is just a resistance to the flow of life.
And it's presented as just fundamentally unhealthy. You can't deny life and, try to live it at the same time.
Right. It's like trying to drive with the emergency brake on. You're burning fuel, getting nowhere, and just fighting the road you're on.
And what's so important here is that this realness, it doesn't need anyone else's approval. The source
Yeah.
is so clear. You always have yourself, independent of other people.
Yeah.
Always.
And that certainty of self, that's the bedrock. When you get that you're self-sufficient at your core, the need for denial just, it starts to dissolve.
So that's the prerequisite for the spiritual paths that we're getting into next.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's move into section 2. Let's talk about karma, resistance, and this whole spiritual process. I know when people hear karma, they think of some kind of cosmic scoreboard.
Yeah, the material defines it very differently. The goal here is simple, detach from karma.
But what is it in this framework?
The key distinction is that all karma here is resistance-based. It's the energy you spend fighting what is.
So if you get involved in that resistance,
You become part of it. You get tangled up the very thing you were trying to avoid.
can you give us an example, like resistance-based karma versus just a bad outcome?
For sure. Okay, getting stuck in traffic, the bad outcome is you're late. Simple. Resistance-based karma is when you spend that whole hour fuming, cursing the other drivers, rehearsing the angry speech you'll give when you get there. You're actively creating and absorbing that resistant, fearful energy.
So it embeds itself inside you.
It does, but if you just accept the process, okay, I'm late, this is what's happening, you can use detachment to see the outcome without taking on all that karmic baggage.
That completely shifts the goal. It's not about avoiding bad things. It's about avoiding resistance to things.
Exactly. And that brings us to the core idea here. The sources say that if you can look at everything as just a process of understanding, life gets much easier.
And that process becomes your spiritual path.
That's it. Life isn't a test you pass or fail. It's just a curriculum. And detachment is the main tool you use to navigate it.
Okay, but I struggle with detachment versus apathy. If I detach from a problem, doesn't that just mean I don't care anymore?
That's a crucial distinction. Apathy is shutting down, a lack of feeling. Detachment, in this context, is heightened awareness without the emotional absorption.
So you can still care.
Deeply. You can care about injustice, but you detach from the ignorance and the resistance around the problem. You approach it with clarity from the mind, not from that reactive ego.
That distinction alone is huge. But detachment is, it's hard.
Yeah.
Which takes us to section 3 and the hurdles we build inside ourselves. The material says something so universal. No one is born here and isn't affected by life.
We all feel the impact. And what's the common reaction?
So block it out.
Right. We don't want to feel it, so we put up a wall. But the insight here is that this action, it actually blocks your ability to evolve in that area. You literally stop your own growth.
It's a vicious circle. we block what we need to learn because if we already understood it, we wouldn't feel the need to block it.
And what's at the root of that block?
Fear.
Always fear. People fear what they don't understand, so they block the understanding, and that blocks their evolution. The solution is surprisingly simple, though.
Which is?
Evolution happens when the mind simply accepts it. The mind is the mechanism for acceptance.
Let's pin the idea of the mind for a second and talk about the defense mechanism that keeps the fear locked in. Compartments. This is a really rich concept.
It is. Compartments are a psychological strategy, often from trauma, to protect the self. Think of it like a psychic triage.
Okay.
When a trauma is just too big, the self builds walls. It distracts from the bigger, harsher reality, the greater compartment, by focusing on a smaller, more manageable pain.
So it's like saying, well, it's not that bad because at least X didn't happen.
Precisely. It's focusing on the little crack in the drywall so you don't have to look at the fact that the foundation is crumbling.
And the material says the biggest hurdle to evolution is dealing with your own fear.
Because fear is what keeps those compartments so rigid, they're fortifications built out of fear.
So detachment is about learning to trust yourself enough to start taking down those walls, letting go of the bad to open up to the good, which is just acceptance.
And that dismantling process, that is evolution. That's becoming the best human being you can be. It's about internal integration, not division.
And that internal work, it has to impact how we deal with the outside world. This brings us to section 4. Interpersonal boundaries and karmic responsibility.
Right. If we're building our own compartments out of fear, what happens when we run into someone else's?
The material gives a very practical warning here. It says we cannot accept another person's fears and expect it not to affect us.
We absorb it. We take on their fearful energy, their drama, maybe out of some misplaced sense of compassion.
I think most of us do that. We think we're being a good friend or a good partner by shouldering their emotional load.
But the sources are really firm here on the boundaries of responsibility. Everyone's karma is theirs. Our karma is ours.
Period.
Period. Our number one responsibility is to free ourselves from our own resistance-based karma. Why? So we don't unknowingly pass it on to others. Clean your own house first.
That's incredibly liberating. It gives you permission to stop trying to manage everyone else's spiritual journey.
Exactly. Your job is to tend to your own garden so your calm isn't corrupted by their fear. It's actually the highest form of service you can offer.
This flows perfectly into section 5, which is where these interactions usually happen. Opinions. The text says people's opinions are, well, quite often based in fear.
And this is where we really start to see the difference in where our thoughts come from. And an opinion is defined here as a personal view of how you'd like things to be.
So it's a self-justifying view of life.
It is. And if that view gets challenged, especially if it's protecting a compartment, it generates fear.
Right. So when two opposing opinions clash, it's really one person's self-justification system threatening another's.
That's it. And that's why detachment is so powerful. It doesn't mean you stop caring about other people's fear. It just means you realize there's, and I'm quoting here, nothing for us to do with their fears. We don't have to fight them.
Okay, let's get to the core mechanism, because the text makes a huge distinction between two sources of opinion. There are opinions from freedom, associated with the mind, and opinions from fear, associated with the ego or intellect.
Yes. This is essential to understand. We can think of it like this. The mind is the seat of acceptance, of clarity. It just knows things. The intellect is the tool for analysis. It sorts facts. And the ego is the part that uses the intellect's data to justify itself and defend its little fear compartments.
So a viewpoint from the mind is a detached observation. But a viewpoint from the ego or intellect is really a self-serving argument that's rooted in fear.
That's the distinction. And only you can know for yourself if what you're saying is a free point of view or if it's a self-justified, fearful opinion. The quality depends entirely on where it's coming from inside you.
Which raises the big question. How do we actually shift from that fearful ego to the clear mind? And that takes us to section 6, the method for detachment.
The path is all about learning how to relocate your awareness, to get out of the constant chatter of the ego and intellect and into the stillness of the mind.
When you can do that.
You can learn how to detach from all the things that no longer serve you. The habits, the fears, the old opinions.
That sounds like a massive undertaking. It's not something you can just decide to do. It feels like it would require a very specific practice.
It does, and the source material actually provides one. It says that doing Kelee, that's K-E-L-E-E, pronounced Kelee meditation, is the way to learn how to make this shift.
So the meditation is the tool.
It's the practical tool to detach from fear and open up to the freedom of life.
It's the mechanism you use to quiet the intellectual analysis, quiet the ego's defenses, and let the mind, the place of pure acceptance, take over.
Precisely. It connects all these deep philosophical ideas we've been talking about to a practical, actionable method. Without that, it's all just interesting information.
Okay, let's quickly recap the major insights here.
Hmm.
We started with realness as the foundation and denial as its opposite, as resistance.
We learned that karma is resistance-based and that life gets easier when you see it as a process of understanding.
Right. We identified our internal blocks, those fear-based compartments, and saw that our main job is to free ourselves so we don't project our fear onto others.
And tying it all together is the utility of knowledge itself. The intellect can hold facts, but knowledge only becomes truly useful for you and for others when the mind understands it.
That's the bridge between a fact and real wisdom.
That is the bridge.
That's a fantastic place to leave it. And as you take these ideas with you, here's a provocative thought for you to apply. Remember that crucial different opinions are based in either freedom from the mind or fear from the ego. So the next time you're in a discussion and you feel that need to defend your viewpoint, just pause. Ask yourself, is this coming from a place of detached, calm understanding? Or is this a self-justifying fear trying to protect an old resistance?
That inner check-in, that's the moment of evolution right there.
It certainly is. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into self-evolution and the path to real freedom.
Until next time.
See you soon.